All right, happy new year. Happy 2024. Right now it's January 24, 2024. January is almost over. And every year, everybody always sets these big, lofty goals and they don't accomplish them. They don't follow through and they actually never get nowhere near. And we see this all the time in the gym industry. January, it's packed. February, things go back to normal. And I just got done with a big training and a new certification that I'm doing. And we were talking about the importance of goal setting, how to actually set goals correctly and why they don't work and why people actually, the reason they don't work is because there's these root cause source beliefs that trigger people into self-sabotage and actually prevent them from doing it. We don't even realize we're doing it, and we're always going into our head, I'm sure for many of us, or sometimes it's this overt anger that we're asking ourselves, like, why is this always happening? Why do I always self-sabotage? And really the key is you've got to rewire some of your brain patterns and some of these things that show up again and again for you. And so I want to talk about with you guys. I want to give you some really big nuggets and big ideas that you can start using to start to oppose some of the patterns that cause your regular self-sabotage so that you can actually accomplish your goals in 2024. So let's get into it. That's what this topic is going to be about. By the way, I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Joel Evan, best-selling author, health coach, life coach, father, dad coach, a father himself with two young boys, married for 11 years. And this is what I'm passionate about, men's work and really bringing men up. And this conversation is for men and women, but really I see a need and a gap right now in the men in our world right now. And we need a lot of support and we need a lot of action takers. And a lot of guys are sitting on the sides and just letting life pass them by. And for me, that's unacceptable. And I want to help support men that want to take action and be courageous and be brave and take messy action. And so that's what I'm all about. So let's jump into this quick Wednesday training that I like to do. And let's talk about goal setting. So number one, when you're thinking about your goals, and I'll give you some examples of my own life, but I would give yourself three big goals, right? Like what are the overarching themes that are showing up in your life and some of the big things that you want to tackle maybe this year? And for me, for example, it's going to be my relationships, right? My marriage. It's going to be how I show up in that marriage specifically, how I am triggered by my wife, and how I can now oppose some of these patterns that are showing up in my life so that I can help that rewire process that I'm talking about. The second thing is going to be with my kids, building deeper connection with them, right? Where am I showing up? Where am I getting triggered by them? And what are those source belief patterns that again keep showing up? So I need to rewire that. These are two big goals. These are big relationship goals. And then my last final big goal is going to be a career goal and a monetary goal that I have for my coaching business and just where I want to see it grow and go this year. So one of the things we need to think about these goals is they need to be aligned with, these are like the GPS coordinates, right? This is the North Star. This is what my mission is. This is what's going to get me there. And these goals are actually challenging, like I mentioned earlier, some deep rooted source beliefs. And you guys are gonna have to do some of your own work, or you could always schedule a coaching call with me and we can go into this. But the reality is these deep rooted source beliefs, you guys know them well, is that is at the root of what is preventing you from reaching your greatness, right? And many of us struggle with these things, such as this like rejection pattern, right? We struggle with those type of people typically struggle with even setting a goal in the first place. They have issues with just validation and feeling good about themselves. And so they have a lot of self-doubt, right? And they have trouble even getting started with maybe their goals. And then you have people like myself, which may pose as more of an abandonment kind of pattern, right? I have no problem setting goals. Starting them is easy, and probably I put way too much on my plate. And so it's really just the follow through, right? And sometimes you see an abandonment kind of pattern is they have this idea of like, I'll set the goal because it doesn't even really matter. And things could change from moment to moment. Things could change tomorrow. So who cares? Let's set the goal. Let's see what happens, right? Now, that's not necessarily my mindset, but I do sometimes lack the follow through because I have so many ideas and I take on everything because I want to accomplish everything. So sometimes that will get in my way. And if I'm not aware of that, then I know, and I shouldn't be surprised that, oh, guess what? More big goals came up this year and you didn't accomplish them. Why not, Joel? And so we need to really start evaluating our goals, but then actually opposing the pattern that I'm talking about here, guys, and actually going against the grain because you know you're not going to accomplish it if these root causes aren't taken care of, right? And so think of some of the big categories of where you in your life make these like your top three, big goal categories. And think about where you may need to acquire some new skills, where you need to maybe remove some bad habits or self-sabotage. And maybe there's even relationships that you need to clear out of the way that are chaotic, right? And so think of those areas and maybe some of the past trauma that's weighing you down, and think about that when you're making these big goals, right? And then you need to ask yourself the following when it comes to a big goal. Like, number one, is the goal even big enough? Is your big goal far enough away from completion so that it wouldn't count as something like you just need to do as an adult? Like, it's just something you need to do on your to-do list, but that's not really a big goal. And make sure that you want to make sure, that it's not some incremental goal, because we're going to talk about incremental goals that will lead you into those three big goals. So you want to make sure it's not just too small of a goal, right? The other thing is, are your goals, are they limited by your source belief pattern that we're talking about? These hold it all together kind of patterns that we have from childhood, rejection, abandonment, etc. Are your goals skewed because of past experiences or assumptions? And then the last and final fifth thing is, are your goals limited by the way that people think or perceive you, or the goal itself, right? And so your big goals, they're going to require a significant amount of effort in conjunction with the organization of all aspects of your life over a sustained period of time. So you need to think about this. Are they measurable, and are they well defined? How many times do we have people setting goals like, I'm going to be healthier this year? Like, what does that even mean? You can't even quantify that. Like, what you need is, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by March 1st. That is a well-defined and measurable goal, right? So now let's break this down a little bit further into what I mean by incremental goal setting. So these incremental goals are going to make up a bigger part to your three main big goals. So the incremental goals, they need to be small, they need to be measurable. And in this case, they're going to be directly related to that source belief pattern that we were kind of talking about earlier. So the goal setting exercise this is really intended to help you build the interactions, the opportunities that are going to be required for you to rewire or disprove, aka oppose, this source belief pattern. So like, if I have this pattern of like, I'm not good enough, right? Well, how is that going to show up in that main big goal that I have for my relationship, with my wife, and saying like, I'm not good enough. Everything I do is never good enough for her. Well, that's going to tie into self-worth, self-esteem. That's going to tie into me not showing up when she, maybe provides some friction in my life, because now I'm going to shut down. I'm going to avoid her. So think about how is that going to lead me and my family into how am I going to lead the family? How am I going to lead the relationship and build deeper connection with my wife when I know this about myself? Like, I could set the goal, like, I want to have a better relationship, but I already know, like, if these things happen, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to people please. I'm going to shut down, and then eventually I'm going to get angry. Like, I already know this, right? So I've got to start doing things incrementally that are going to support this pattern that I already know, that how I show up and what I do. So here's some things that you want to remember. I'm going to give you 4 big ideas of what you can remember when you're setting these incremental goals. Number 1, we talked about, make it measurable, right? So select a frequency or a period, like, I'm going to do X 3 times over the next 5 days. And give have this frequency, or create a due date, which is based on the time that you're actually writing this goal. Like, I'm going to do this many times. That's measurable, and that gets done, right? What's measured gets done. Number 2 is you want to, again, directly relate to this incremental goal to that source belief pattern of whatever it is. Like, again, the example I just gave you is, I'm not good enough. Or if I'm even raising with my boys, right? And I want to build deeper connection with them. And one of the things that happens is, when I leave my office, my home office, my boys are homeschooled, so they're always around. They want to play with dad. But it aggravates me so much because I feel like I don't have the time. I'm like, I'm working. You got to leave me alone, right? Now, where does that really come from? It comes from this idea that if I spend time with them, I won't be successful. And that's just not true. And so I have to oppose that. So what mini goals, incremental goals, can I actually use to oppose this pattern that I've created? And the pattern is not healthy, right? It's just not, it creates more friction and discomfort in our lives. So again, this is a way that is going to help you collect evidence. You're going to create this goal to support this incremental goal to actually help oppose that source belief, right? And give your brain evidence to actually disprove it, just like I just gave you with my own personal life. So the third thing is give yourself some clearly articulated language that shows commitment, right? So if you need to have more intimacy with your significant other, maybe you're going to say spontaneously initiate intimacy with my partner 3 times this week, or delegate the following list of X responsibilities to my spouse by micromanaging for the next 7 days, or remove Facebook off my phone and not check for 5 days, right? This is very clearly articulated language. And again, it ties back into when you're direct and you measure it, you can actually create change. What's measured, there's this famous, I think it's Peter Drucker or Chris Drucker quote, some famous entrepreneur. And he says, I forget the quote now, but it's something like, what gets measured. Now I got to look it up, guys. Give me a second. But I'm going to go over the fourth thing because I can't believe I'm blanking out on that quote. It's a famous one. But let's go over the fourth thing. Taking into account each of your trigger areas. So you need to address each trigger and area in your incremental goals, okay? And these goals should actually help you intentionally interact with your triggers to help that rewiring process for all your responses. So, for example, if your mom triggers you into shame and anger because you typically don't oppose her pattern, right? You get triggered and you just fall right into shame and anger. Well, here's your chance, right? So now you're going to proactively call mom 2 times a week and use pattern opposition to not go into shame and actually spiral. So these are just some really nice ways I found, and it just really highlighted, even as much as I know about goal setting and achieving and follow through, these were some ideas that I had never thought about. And I really like the idea of attacking the source belief, because we know that is at the crux of all really all self-sabotage. And it's like, well, where is self-sabotage showing up in our lives, in our career, in our health, in our marriage, everywhere? And that, I think, is the key. So here we go, guys. I found the quote. Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. There you go. I can't believe I blanked out on that. So that is the key, my friends. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope it's going to give you some ideas of how you can actually follow through and really identify why, number one, where is your self-sabotage coming up, and why do you always do the same thing over and over again? Because it's your brain pattern. It's what you do. And if you don't understand it or see it, and you're not opposing it actively, well, then guess what? You probably aren't, accomplishing goals. And I know for me, a lot of my goal accomplishment and success this far has just been pure willpower and just, digging my heels in and just go, 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 go. And that's great. And it's got me some great things. But man, now I just see there's such an easier way to do things when you start to see how you're showing up on a regular basis and how you can pattern oppose. And I will say this, pattern opposing is not easy. Like, it sucks. I don't want to oppose my pattern. My brain likes this chaos sometimes. But really, the key for me to being ultimately centered, grounded, and of integrity and in alignment is actually opposing these patterns. And I show up as a better person for my family, myself, and others around me. So long story short, I hope this was powerful for you guys. I know it was for me. And I hope you just kick ass in 2024, and it's not like the same as it has been in the other years. If you need help, please, in your marriage or your fatherhood, in your family, reach out to me personally. DM me, comment below, hero, and I will reach out to you and I'll send you some free resources. We have an amazing Facebook group, and we have an amazing men's group that I coach one-on-one with individuals right now. It's called First Responder Fathers. So jump into that group. We'd love to have you on board. It includes, everything from communication mastery, self-mastery, habits, kids, discipline, everything. It's in a nice package. There's modules, and we created a really nice community of men that are driven to building unshakable marriages and deeper connection with their kids. And it's really, really inspiring. So if you're not in that group, hop in. We want to see you in there, and we want to up-level our community and our tribe. Have an amazing week.